Syrian and Russian airstrikes pummeled areas of northern Syria after a shock rebel offensive saw his forces lose control of Aleppo. Russia, an ally of the Bashar al-Assad regime, is helping the Syrian army repel the insurgencies. Russian military has said that missile and bombing strikes were carried out, adding that at least 320 militants were destroyed, according to the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Russian warplanes have struck parts of Aleppo for the first time since 2016. Russian and Syrian jets also bombed the northwestern city of Idlib, reports say, citing military sources. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi paid a visit to Damascus in a show of support for the Bashar al-Assad-led regime in Syria after holding top-level talks in Damascus. The Iranian diplomat landed in Turkey. According to Turkish media, Araghchi was expected to meet with the Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan on Monday before talks with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Syrian regime has accused Erdogan of supporting and funding the rebel efforts to topple the Assad regime in Syria. The United States has confirmed that the White House is working on a potential deal to end the hostilities and secure the release of Israeli hostages from Hamas. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, however, cautioned that a resolution has not yet been reached. He further added that the U.S. is actively working on it and is engaged deeply with key players in the region to get the hostages back. The UNRWA, which is responsible for aid supply in Gaza, has suspended shipments through the Kerem Shalom crossing, which has been a primary route for humanitarian aid. UNRWA chief Philippe Lazarny has condemned the situation, citing repeated attacks on aid trucks and an increasingly dangerous environment for relief workers. The Palestinian Health Ministry has said that at least 4 people were killed in an Israeli strike in West Bank on Sunday. The Israeli military, in a joint statement with the Shin Bet Internal Security Agency, said that it has now eliminated a terrorist cell responsible for several shooting attacks in the Gilboa area. At least 44,000 Palestinians have died in the ongoing Israeli military campaign in response to Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. US President Joe Biden has left for Angola on his first Africa trip. The trip will be among his final international engagements before leaving the White House. Biden faces a packed agenda in Angola with military, political and economic agreements set to be signed. The pact signals strengthened ties between the two nations. The timing of the visit shortly after the US presidential election is no coincidence, and rubber-stamping economic cooperation project seems a priority. Biden postponed a planned visit to Angola in October as Hurricane Milton approached the state of Florida in a bid to oversee the preparations for and the response to the storm. US President Joe Biden has issued a full and unconditional pardon for his son, Hunter Biden. The announcement comes just days before Hunter was due to face sentencing for gun crime and tax-related offenses. Biden had previously said that he would not pardon his son. However, Biden justified the U-turn, alleging that his son was being prosecuted selectively and unfairly. He went on to add he hoped Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump slammed the decision as abuse and miscarriage of justice. On social media, Trump questioned the move and asked whether the pardon included the J6 hostages, referring to the people jailed in the Capitol riots case. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has named Lebanese-American businessman Massad Boulos as his senior advisor on Arab and West Asia affairs. Boulos is the father-in-law of daughter Tiffany. This comes after Trump named Charles Kushner, the father-in-law of his other daughter Ivanka, as the next envoy to France. Sharing the decision on social media, Trump described Boulos as a deal-maker and an unwavering supporter of peace in West Asia. This is the second major role given to the father-in-law of one of Trump's children in his next administration. On Saturday, Trump picked his son-in-law, Jared Kushner's father, real estate developer mogul Charles Kushner, to serve as U.S. envoy to France. The ruling Social Democrats in Romania were set to win parliamentary elections. However, the bigger story was far-right parties making big gains. With more than 96% of ballots counted, the pro-European PSD, which has governed with the Liberals until now, was leading other parties with 23.5% of vote. However, all the far-right parties combined stood at more than 30%. Majorly up from the less than 10% they received in the previous vote in 2020. The parliamentary poll comes at a time of political turmoil sparked when a top court ordered a recount of the first round of Romania's November 24th election. That ballot was won by Călin Gergescu, a little-known far-right admirer of Russian President Vladimir Putin. A runoff is now slated for December 8th. Georgia is witnessing fierce demonstrations after the government suspended talks to join the European Union. Police fired tear gas and water cannon at demonstrators on fourth straight day of demonstrations. Demonstrators rallied in Georgia's capital for a fourth straight night after they gathered in Tbilisi's central Rustaveli Avenue. The country's Interior Ministry said over 150 people have been arrested so far. Meanwhile, the country's Prime Minister has rebuffed calls for new elections in the country. In the midst of the ongoing demonstrations in Georgia, the country's ambassadors to Bulgaria, Netherlands and Italy have resigned their posts to join a growing chorus of voices against the government's pro-Russian stance. Over 160 Georgian diplomats have issued a joint statement denouncing the government's decision to halt EU accession talks. The Prime Minister of Nepal, KP Sharma Oli, is set to embark on a 4-day visit to China, where he is expected to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping and hold talks with Premier Li Qiang. It is Oli's first visit to a foreign nation since he came to power in July this year. Oli's trip is likely to put in place a fresh framework for cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, Nepal and China have not yet implemented any project under this initiative that was signed as far back as in May 2017. According to Nepal's foreign ministry, Oli is scheduled to meet with the Chinese president in Beijing. It would be followed by bilateral talk with his Chinese counterpart Li Xiang. The United Nations top court will start unprecedented hearings on climate change today. The hearing is aimed at setting legal guidelines for how countries should protect the planet and help other vulnerable nations combat its devastating impact. Representatives from Vanuatu and other low-lying at-risk islands in the Pacific Ocean will open marathon proceedings at the International Court of Justice before a 15-judge panel. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, more than 100 countries and organizations will make submissions on the topic, the highest number ever before the Hague-based court. Activists hope that the opinion from the ICJ's judges will have far-reaching legal consequences in the fight against climate change. At least 3 people died in rain-related incidents as Cyclone Fengal passed through South India. The cyclone hit the Indian mainland between North Tamil Nadu and Puducherry late on Saturday. Amid heavy rainfall, schools and colleges in Puducherry have announced holiday. Puducherry has experienced severe flooding with 50 centimeters of rainfall. This is the highest rainfall that the Union Territory has received in the last 30 years. The Indian Army conducted rescue and relief operations in the affected areas of Puducherry and Tamil Nadu. Heavy snowfall has disrupted life and vehicular movement in upstate New York and northwestern Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro signed a disaster emergency proclamation which said parts of the Erie County in the northwest received nearly 2 feet of snow, with more expected through Monday night. The National Weather Service is forecasting the storm will persist to the east of Lake Erie through the remainder of the weekend, and it will also produce snow totals as high as 5 feet in some areas. The weather system has also brought temperatures 10 to 15 degrees below average in eastern US. A storm sweeping through Greece has killed 2 people on the island of Lemnos and damaged roads and buildings in Rhodes. Officials have said Storm Bora, which arrived in Greece on Saturday, is expected to bring heavy snowfall to the north and the northwest until Tuesday. More than 17 centimeters of rain fell in 12 hours on Saturday. The Greek Weather Service said at least 2 people died on Lemnos in the Aegean Sea on Saturday as the Civil Protection Service issued an emergency alert for torrential rains and strong winds in the northeast, the center and the regions around Athens as well. Countries negotiating a global treaty to curb plastic pollution have failed to reach an agreement at the UN plastic pollution talks in Busan in South Korea, with more than 100 nations wanting to cap production, while only a handful of oil producers prepared to target plastic waste. The talks ended without a breakthrough. One of the drafts proposed by Panama included the initiative to cap the plastic production. However, oil-producing countries like Saudi Arabia opposed it, while another proposal did not include production caps. The 5th UN Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee meeting intended to formulate a legally binding global treaty against plastic. Australia is drafting a law that could fine global tech giants up to $33 million for stifling competition and making it hard for users to switch between services. The law would give the country's competition regulator the power to investigate anti-competitive practices and enforce compliance. A public consultation will run until February 14th, after which the draft legislation will be finalized. Inspired by the EU's Digital Markets Act, the proposal aims to make it easier for consumers to switch between platforms like social media, browsers and app stores. Elon Musk has intensified his legal battle with OpenAI and has filed for an initial injunction in a California court. The move seeks to block OpenAI's transition to a fully for-profit model. The lawsuit names OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, Microsoft's president Greg Brookman, and several board members, accusing them of anti-competitive practices. Musk's legal team argues that the company has deviated from its original non-profit mission of making AI research widely accessible. OpenAI has dismissed the lawsuit as baseless, calling it Musk's fourth attempt to undermine the company. Meta is reportedly gearing up to lay its own undersea fiber optic cable network covering over 40,000 kilometers. According to sources, the project, expected to cost more than $10 billion, could be unveiled early next year. The proposed route spans the east coast of the US to India through South Africa, then loops back to the west coast through Australia. This initiative would allow Meta, which is responsible for 22% of global mobile traffic, to manage its vast internet demands independently. Cybersecurity experts are cautioning Netflix subscribers about a phishing scam that is aimed at stealing account and payment details. Hackers are sending fake text messages claiming that user subscription payments have failed, threatening to suspend their accounts. The message contains a link to a fraudulent website that mimics Netflix's official platform, prompting users to enter their login credentials and credit card information. Stolen data is then sold on the dark web. Netflix has clarified that it will never request personal or payment information through text or email. The company advises users to avoid clicking on such links and to change their passwords if they have interacted with these scams. Asian stocks climbed on Monday, buoyed by record high closes on Wall Street. Meanwhile, the dollar bounced back from multi-week lows against the yen and UK pound in a crucial week for the US. Interest rate outlook: Chinese shares get an additional boost from a robust reading in a private manufacturing survey on Monday. Investor focus is split between the Federal Reserve's December policy decision, with the potential for a rate cut, and Trump's fiscal and trade policies. Meanwhile, the euro faces pressure as France's government teeters under a budget standoff, heightening risks of a political turmoil. Gold prices eased early on Monday, trading around $2,630 per ounce. This comes as a stronger US dollar and higher treasury yields pressured the metal. A strong dollar, bolstered by rising yields and political tensions in France, has made gold pricier for foreign buyers. Additionally, reduced heaven demand following a US brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. It has contributed to gold's nearly 3% decline last week. Despite this, geopolitical risks like Russia's war in Ukraine, it continues to support gold's safe haven appeal. Investors now focus on the upcoming US non-farm payrolls data, which could influence the Federal Reserve's December 18th interest rate decision. Markets see a 70% chance of a quarter-point rate cut, potentially benefiting gold. which thrives in low-interest environments. Oil prices rise, buoyed by signs of a slow recovery in China's economy and anticipation of Thursday's OPEC meeting. Brent crude climbed to around $72 a barrel following a 3% decline last week. Data showed China's factory activity expanded for the second consecutive month in November, signaling tentative recovery in the world's largest crude importer after recent stimulus measures. OPEC Plus postponed its supply policy meeting by 4 days, fueling speculation that the group will delay a planned production increase for the third time. Experts noted oil remains range-bound, with uncertainty tied to geopolitical tensions in West Asia. Russia, China's outlook, and the potential return of Trump to the U.S. presidency.